Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jennifer and I'll be narrating today's story. This is a piece of human-written science fiction, so get comfortable and let's jump right in.
The Empress watched a human's last stand. Then she did the unthinkable. The third Gorgon stalker died badly. Its chitinous skull cracked like a dropped egg as Ethan Shore brought the spiked mace down with both hands, using gravity and the creature's own forward momentum against it. The beast, 12 feet of muscle, fang, and evolutionary nightmare, collapsed with a wet, shuddering finality that sent tremors through the arena floor. Ethan staggered, nearly went down himself. His vision swam. Blood loss, probably. He'd stopped cataloging his injuries after the first stalker had opened his left shoulder to the bone. Pain was just information now, and the information was useless. He was still moving, that's all that mattered. The arena fell silent. 80,000 spectators across a dozen species, packed into the tiered seats of Azure Prime's Grand Colosseum, simply stopped. The roar that had accompanied the beast's release, a sound like a planetary engine starting cut off as if someone had severed its throat. Ethan planted the mace in the sand and leaned on it, breathing in great, ragged pulls. Around him lay the evidence of the execution. 3 Gorgon stalkers, each bred specifically to kill condemned prisoners slowly, beside them the broken bodies of his cellmates. Jenkins, who'd taught him to use peripheral vision to track multiple threats. Yuki, who'd shared her last protein bar with him the night before. Marcus, who'd made them all laugh by describing in excruciating detail the hamburger he'd eat if he ever got home. None of them had made it past the second stalker. Ethan was supposed to be dead 6 minutes ago. He lifted his head, storm-gray eyes scanning the royal dais through the haze of exhaustion and blood. The sun shields created artificial shade for the Empire's elite, their jeweled finery glittering like a constellation brought down to earth. And at the center, elevated on a throne of carved crystal and liquid light, sat Queen Zapia of the Azure Dominion. She was staring at him. Not with the detached interest of a monarch watching a curiosity. Not with the satisfied sadism of a tyrant watching an enemy die. Her ice-blue eyes had gone wide, pupils dilated to dark pools. Her lips, painted the color of deep space, were parted. One elegant hand gripped the arm of her throne with enough force that her knuckles had gone pale against her cerulean skin. Ethan had seen that look before. In bars on station worlds. In the eyes of officers who'd tried to recruit him for Black Ops work. In the faces of people who saw something they wanted and decided, in that moment, that they would have it. He was too tired to care. He'd achieved his goal. He'd survived long enough to make them regret ever capturing a human colony ship. He'd killed their execution beasts. He'd made them watch a primitive species fight with a ferocity their advanced civilization had evolved past. The mace slipped from his fingers. He swayed, went to one knee. The crowd held its breath. On the dais, Queen Zapia rose. The movement was so unexpected that her personal guard, 6 warriors in adaptive armor that shifted colors like oil on water, turned in confusion. She descended the steps with fluid grace, each footfall precise, her golden laurel crown catching the artificial sunlight. The crowd's silence deepened into something almost religious. Ethan watched her approach through the gray haze creeping into his peripheral vision. He tried to stand, got halfway up, before his legs decided they'd done enough for one day. He stayed on one knee, jaw set, refusing to bow. If she wanted him prostrate, she'd have to kill him herself. Zapia stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she was even more striking and alien. Her skin had a faint luminescence, as if lit from within. Her pointed ears twitched, tracking sounds he couldn't hear. She smelled like ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. "You are Ethan Shore," she said. Her voice carried, despite its softness, amplified by technology woven into her crown. Human, surveyor, captured during the annexation of the Kepler 442 colony. "That's right." His own voice came out as a rasp. He tasted copper. "You going to kill me yourself, or are you here to gloat?" Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe, as if she'd expected him to plead. "Neither," she said. She extended her hand. The gesture was ritual, he realized. Formal. Her long fingers were perfectly steady, rings glittering on 3 of them. Her eyes held his, and in them he saw something that made his combat-trained instincts scream warnings: hunger. "I claim you," Queen Zapia announced, her voice now carrying to every corner of the arena, "by right of conquest and royal prerogative, not as slave, not as prisoner, but as consort to the throne of Azure Prime." The crowd erupted. Ethan, through the blood loss and exhaustion and absolute bewilderment, had one coherent thought. What the fuck? The arena dissolved into chaos. Nobles shouted. Advisors scrambled down the dais steps. The Queen's guards snapped into a defensive formation, their weapons humming to life with a sound like angry wasps. And through it all, Zapia stood with her hand extended, waiting. Ethan stared at that hand. At the ring's signet, ceremonial, one that pulsed with contained energy. At the flawless cerulean skin, unmarked by the scars and hard labor that covered his own. At the steady, unwavering certainty of her posture. She was serious. I don't, he started, then stopped. His brain was running on fumes and stubbornness. That's not how this works. It is how I decree it works. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You may accept, or you may return to your cell to await whatever execution my court devises next. Though I promise you, the next one will not offer even the illusion of survival. A guard reached the Queen's side male, built like a tank, with facial ridges that suggested a rhino somewhere in his evolutionary tree. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. Silence, Corvin. She didn't look at him. The human will answer. Ethan's tactical mind, the part of him that had kept him alive through 3 wars and 2 first-contact disasters, began working through the angles. Consort meant political weight. It meant access. It meant leverage he didn't currently have while dying slowly in a cell. It also meant whatever the alien equivalent of a king's bed was, and that brought complications he didn't have the bandwidth to process. But mostly, it meant not dying today. He reached up and took her hand. Her skin was warmer than he expected, and the moment their palms met, something happened, a flash of light from her rings, a sensation like static electricity crawling up his arm. She pulled him to his feet with surprising strength, and as he rose, she pressed her signet ring to his blood-covered chest. The pain was immediate and searing. He gritted his teeth as the ring burned through skin and tissue, leaving a mark he could feel but not see. Some kind of brand, claiming mark, whatever. When she pulled back, there was a golden symbol etched just below his collarbone, a crown within a circle, glowing faintly. It is done, Zapia announced. She turned to face the crowd, still holding his hand. Let the archives record this day. Let the Empire bear witness. This human is mine. The way she said mine made something low in Ethan's gut tighten despite everything. The Rhino guard Corvin looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't figure out where to start. The other guards simply stared, their expressions unreadable behind their helmets. Zapia began walking, pulling Ethan with her. He followed on unsteady legs, leaving bloody footprints in the pristine sand. The crowd parted like water, nobles and courtiers pressing back against their seats, staring with mixtures of shock, disgust, and on more than a few faces poorly concealed fascination. They climbed the dais steps. Ethan's knee gave out on the 4th step. Zapia caught him without breaking stride, her arms suddenly around his waist, supporting more of his weight than should be possible for her frame. Alien physiology. Right. At the top, a contingent of medical staff weighted beings in white robes with too many arms and scanning devices that hummed and clicked. Zapia waved them forward with her free hand. Stabilize him, she commanded, then bring him to the royal baths. I will attend to him personally. One of the medics, a spindly creature with compound eyes, hesitated. Your Majesty, the contamination protocols are suspended for my consort. Her voice could have cut glass. Now. They moved. Ethan felt the sting of injections multiple, too fast to count. The gray haze at the edges of his vision receded slightly. His legs steadied. Whatever they'd given him was working fast, knitting tissue, flooding him with stimulants and clotting agents. Can you walk? Zapia asked quietly, meant only for him. Yeah, he tested his weight, found his legs mostly cooperative. For now. Good. Because we are being watched by the entire court, and I need you to look like you belong at my side. She leaned closer, her lips nearly touching his ear. Can you do that, Ethan Shore? Can you pretend to be mine? He turned his head, met her eyes at close range. This close, he could see the flecks of darker blue in her irises, the slight asymmetry of her pupils, not quite human, not quite anything else he'd seen. I don't pretend, he said. Her smile was sharp and sudden. Good, neither do I. She straightened, and together they walked across the royal platform toward the vaulted exit that would lead into the palace proper. Behind them, the arena remained in stunned suspension. Ethan Shore, human surveyor and condemned prisoner, had just become the consort to the most powerful being in known space. He figured he'd process the implications once he stopped bleeding. The royal baths were a cathedral built for water. Ethan stood at the entrance, his battered body still leaking blood onto pristine white marble, and tried to make sense of the scale. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadows 50 feet above. Pools of varying sizes dotted the chamber, each one glowing with different colors: azure, emerald, violet. Steam rose in lazy columns, backlit by bioluminescent plants that grew from the walls in cascading gardens. The air was thick, warm, smelling of minerals and something like lavender. "Your species bathes, yes?" Zapia had dismissed her guards at the entrance, leaving them alone in the vast space. "We do." Ethan's voice echoed slightly, "not usually like this." She moved past him, her formal robes trailing behind her, reflecting in the polished floor like oil on water. "This chamber was built 3 centuries ago by my great-grandmother. Each pool serves a different purpose: healing, meditation, celebration." She stopped at the largest pool, the one that glowed the same cerulean as her skin. "This one is mine." Ethan followed, his tactical awareness noting exits, sightlines, potential weapons despite his exhaustion. Old habits. The room was secure, probably the most secure place in the entire palace, which meant he was trapped with her. The realization should have triggered alarm. Instead, he just felt tired. Zapia began removing her jewelry, the rings first, placed carefully on a floating platform that drifted on the pool's surface. Then the crown, lifted with both hands, set beside the rings like a benediction. Her midnight blue hair, released from its formal constraints, fell to her shoulders in waves. She looked at him. "You are still wearing armor." Ethan glanced down. The armor was mostly rage and spite at this point. Leather straps, metal plates, all of it soaked through with his blood and the stalker's. "What's left of it?" "Remove it." It wasn't a request, but her tone held something other than command curiosity, maybe, clinical interest. He recognized it from field medics who were about to tell you something was broken that you were pretty sure was just bruised. He reached for the buckles on his chest plate, fingers clumsy with fatigue. The leather was swollen with blood, making the clasps difficult. He managed one, the second wouldn't budge. Zapia closed the distance between them in 3 fluid steps. "Allow me." Her fingers brushed his away, warm, dexterous. She worked the buckle with practiced efficiency, then moved to the shoulder straps. This close, he could feel heat radiating from her, warmer than human standard. The armor fell away piece by piece: chestplate, pauldrons, bracers. Each piece hit the marble with sounds that echoed like judgment. When she reached for the clasps of his torn shirt, he caught her wrist. "I can handle that part." She looked at where his hand circled her arm, then up at his face, one eyebrow arched. "Can you? Your hands are shaking." They were. He hadn't noticed. Combat aftermath. Adrenaline crash. Fascinating. She didn't pull away. "Your species' adrenal response is remarkably prolonged. Our medical scans showed levels that would have killed most sapient beings." "Yeah, well, humans are stubborn that way." "So I have observed." Her free hand came up, fingers tracing the edge of the brand she'd burned into his chest. Even through the fabric, he felt the touch like electricity. "This mark will fade in time, unless I renew it." "Is that a threat or a promise?" Her smile was dangerous. "I have not decided yet." She pulled her wrist free, not violently, but with clear intent, and continued undressing him. He let her, partly because he was too tired to argue. Partly because stopping her would require a confrontation he wasn't ready for. The shirt came off, then the boots, the leg guards, until he stood in just his torn pants, his body a map of fresh wounds overlaying old scars. Zapia circled him slowly, and he tracked her with his eyes, refusing to turn his head. Predator awareness. "You have been injured many times," she observed. "Comes with the territory." "And yet you continue to fight." She completed her circuit, standing before him again. "Why?" "Because staying alive seemed like a better option than dying." Simplistic, but honest. She reached for his belt. "The rest." He caught her hands this time, held them. "Your Majesty." "Zapia." Her eyes met his. "When we are alone, you will use my name." "Zapia," he corrected. "I need to understand what's happening here. Are you—" He searched for diplomatic phrasing, found none. "Are you planning to fuck me? Or are you just really invested in personal hygiene?" The bluntness surprised, a laugh out of her short, genuine, unexpected. You are direct. I've found it saves time. Very well, direct answer. She stepped closer, close enough that he could count her eyelashes. I am planning to clean you, to heal you, to ensure you survive the next few days, which will be politically complicated and potentially dangerous. And yes, Ethan Shore, I am planning to take you to my bed, but not tonight. Tonight you are half dead, and I prefer my partners conscious and willing. The casual certainty of it hit harder than the stalkers had. Why me? Because you fought 3 apex predators with broken weapons and inferior armor, and you won. Because when I watch you move, I see something my species lost millennia ago. She paused, searching for words. Raw vitality. Chaos. The absolute refusal to accept defeat. Her pupils dilated again, that same hunger from the arena. I watched you kill, and for the first time in a century, I felt alive. Ethan processed that, failed to find an adequate response, settled for, that's deeply concerning on multiple levels. I know, she smiled. Remove the rest, or I will do it for you. He removed the rest. The water was perfect, blood-warm, mineralized, slightly effervescent against his skin. Ethan sank into it with a groan that was probably indecent. Every wound screamed, and then went quiet as whatever was dissolved in the water went to work. He felt tissue knitting, inflammation reducing, exhaustion lifting just enough to remind him how tired he actually was. Zapia entered the pool opposite him, and the effect was immediate. Her skin began to glow brighter, a bioluminescent response to the minerals. The water around her took on the same cerulean hue, spreading outward in ripples. Your species does that naturally, he asked. In water rich with our home minerals, yes. She moved through the pool toward him, each step deliberate. It is considered attractive among my people. It is, he admitted. Attractive, I mean. She stopped within arm's reach. Turn around. He turned, too tired to argue, and felt her hands on his shoulders a moment later. She began washing the blood from him with methodical care, water sluiced over his back, her fingers finding each wound, each scar, cataloging them with touch. It was clinical and intimate at once, and he found himself relaxing despite every instinct screaming that he shouldn't. This one, she said, tracing a long scar across his shoulder blade, is old. Raider attack, Kepler 442, about 3 years ago. And this? A circular scar on his ribs. Plasma burn, first contact incident with a species that didn't want contact. She continued the inventory, and he answered each question, falling into a rhythm. Her hands were skilled, careful around the fresh wounds, firm on the old scar tissue. When she reached the brand on his chest, she paused. Does it pain you? Not anymore. Good. She moved to face him, water lapping at her collarbones. Your turn. She pressed a bar of something into his hand's soap, maybe, though it felt like compressed light, and turned her back to him. Ethan stared at the elegant line of her spine, the slight flare of her hips, the way her hair floated on the water's surface. You trust me to do this? You had opportunities to attack me from behind several times this evening. You chose not to. So yes, I trust you not to drown your new queen. Fair point. He began washing her back, trying for the same clinical efficiency she'd shown. But her skin was different, smoother, warmer, with that faint luminescence that brightened under his touch. She made a sound low in her throat, something between contentment and satisfaction. Humans, she said quietly, have a reputation as warriors, brutal, efficient, relentless, but your files also note your capacity for gentleness. We contain multitudes. Yes, she glanced over her shoulder at him. Show me more of those multitudes, Ethan Shore. I wish to know what I have claimed. So he did. He washed the arena dust from her hair, careful of her ears. He found the knots of tension in her shoulders. Apparently even alien queens got stressed, and worked them loose with his thumbs. He traced the architecture of her body with deliberate care, learning the differences and similarities. And when they were both clean, when the water had worked its healing magic, she turned and kissed him. It was testing, not claiming. Her lips were softer than human standard, her tongue slightly rough. She tasted like the minerals in the water and something electric. His hands found her waist. Hers came up to frame his face, holding him steady as she mapped his mouth with hers. When she pulled back, her eyes had gone dark again, pupils blown wide. Not tonight, she repeated, but her voice had gone husky. But soon. Understood. She smiled genuinely this time, something approaching warmth. Come, you need rest, and I need time to prepare my court for what I have done. They left the pools, dried with towels that moved of their own accord, and Zapia led him through corridors that gleamed like the inside of a pearl. Guards snapped to attention at their approach but said nothing. Servants averted their eyes. The message was clear. The human was hers, and hers alone. The bedchamber, when they reached it, was a space of controlled opulence, a bed large enough for 6 people, walls that showed star fields, furniture that seemed to grow from the floor like organic sculptures. Zapia gestured to the bed. Sleep. I will return before morning. Where are you going? To convince my advisors that claiming a human consort was strategic brilliance rather than temporary insanity. She paused at the door. Rest, Ethan. Tomorrow, the real challenges begin. Then she was gone, leaving him alone in a queen's bedroom, wearing nothing but a brand and bruises, trying to process how he'd gone from dead man walking to royal consort in the span of 6 hours. He collapsed onto the bed. It conformed to his body like a living thing, and despite everything, the pain, the confusion, the sheer absurdity sleep took him in seconds. His last conscious thought was that Zapia's kiss had tasted like lightning. Ethan woke to voices arguing in a language he didn't fully understand. He kept his breathing steady, his body still, while his awareness came online piece by piece. Soft surface beneath him. Check. No immediate weapons within reach. Check. Multiple beings in the room. None within striking distance. Check. The brand on his chest was warm, almost pulsing, and he filed that away as important but not immediately threatening. He opened his eyes. The bedchamber had transformed. Medical equipment ringed the bed scanners on articulated arms, holographic displays showing things that looked disturbingly like his internal organs, and a cluster of beings in white robes who were staring at said displays with expressions ranging from confusion to alarm. Zapia stood at the center of the cluster, arms crossed, her posture radiating impatience. She'd changed into something less formal, a fitted bodysuit that showed off her form while still managing to look regal. Her hair was braided back. She looked like she hadn't slept. Cannot be accurate, one of the medical staff was saying. It was the spindly one from yesterday, all compound eyes and nervous energy. The readings are impossible. And yet, Zapia's voice could have cut diamond. There he is, breathing, very much alive, which suggests your impossible readings are, in fact, possible. Ethan cleared his throat. Every head swiveled toward him. Zapia's expression shifted immediately, relief, quickly masked. You are awake, good. My medical staff has questions. I have questions too, Ethan said, sitting up carefully. The movement pulled at healing wounds, but the pain was distant, manageable. Starting with, why you're scanning me while I sleep. Because I needed confirmation that you would survive the night. She moved to the bedside, dismissing the medics with a gesture. They retreated to a respectful distance but kept watching their displays. The injuries you sustained should have killed you 3 times over. The blood loss alone, she stopped, collecting herself. My royal physician insisted on monitoring you. The spindly medic, apparently the royal physician, wrung its multiple hands together. Your Majesty, I must insist we discuss these findings. The implications. Speak, then, Zapia commanded. The physician manipulated a holographic display, and suddenly Ethan was looking at a 3-dimensional rendering of his own cardiovascular system, rotating slowly in the air. His heart was highlighted in red, and it was beating steadily, maybe a bit fast, but nothing alarming. The human heart, the physician began, its voice taking on a lecture quality, operates at pressures and rhythms that should not sustain complex neural function. But more concerning, it highlighted something else, structures near his kidneys, is the adrenal system. It is producing hormones at levels we typically see only during final death throes. Except in this case, it appears to be normal operating parameters. Ethan looked at Zapia. Is there a question coming? How are you alive? The physician asked bluntly. By our metrics, your species should burn out within 20 standard years. Your cellular metabolism should collapse. Your neural tissue should degrade under constant stress hormone exposure. And yet, human records show lifespans exceeding 70 years. It is biological paradox. Humans are tough, Ethan said with a shrug. We evolved that way. Tough is insufficient descriptor. The physician pulled up another display, this one showing comparative data. Ethan's readings beside what must have been average readings for Zapia's species. Your pain threshold is 60% higher. Your healing factor is accelerated. Your muscle density per body weight exceeds our heavy world variance. You are not merely tough. You are engineered for survival through what we would classify as hostile attrition. Zapia was watching him with that hungry look again. They are calling you an evolutionary weapon. That's dramatic. Is it? She moved closer, one hand coming up to rest on his chest, over his heart. He could feel her pulse through her palm, slower than his, steady and strong. I watched you fight yesterday. You were injured within the first minute, yes? Dislocated shoulder. And yet you continued, adapted, overcame. Most species would have entered shock and died. Her fingers traced patterns on his skin. But humans do not shock easily, do they? We do. It's just, he thought about how to explain it. We have a lot of redundancies, backup systems. Our bodies are designed to keep functioning even when things go catastrophically wrong. Why? The physician asked. What environmental pressure created such optimization? Ethan met the creature's compound gaze. Earth isn't a kind planet. We had to get creative to survive it. Zapia made a sound that might have been a laugh. So humans are the result of planetary hostility. How fitting, she turned to the physician. Is he stable? By human standards, yes. By our standards, he exists in constant state of controlled crisis. The physician hesitated. Your Majesty, I must advise against. Strenuous activity. His system is already taxed. Noted. Zapia waved the medics away. Leave us. I will summon you if needed. They filed out, taking their equipment with them, though Ethan noticed a few displays remained active, floating near the walls, monitoring him. He supposed he should be annoyed, but mostly he was just tired. When they were alone, Zapia sat on the edge of the bed. How do you feel? Like I got beaten half to death by alien monsters. So, pretty good, all things considered. She studied him for a long moment. The scans showed something else. Your neurological activity is unusual. You process pain differently than predicted. The technician believes you have some form of pain insensitivity. Not insensitive, just stubborn. He touched the brand on his chest. I feel pain fine. I just don't let it stop me. Because Earth trained you not to stop. Something like that. She reached out, tracing the edge of the brand with one fingertip. This marking has integrated with your cellular structure faster than expected. It will remain unless I remove it. Does that trouble you? Does it matter if it does? Yes, she said simply. Because I am discovering that your feelings matter to me more than I anticipated. That was unexpected. Ethan searched her face for deception, found none. Why? Because you are honest in ways my court has forgotten how to be. Because you fought 3 beasts to protect the memory of fallen comrades rather than beg for mercy. Because, she stopped, frustration crossing her features. Because when I touch you, I feel something I thought I had lost. Purpose, desire, something beyond the hollow rituals of power. Ethan processed that, so I'm your midlife crisis. She blinked. I do not understand that reference. Doesn't matter. He caught her hand, held it. Look, Zapia. I'm going to be direct again, because I don't know how to be anything else. I don't know your games. I don't know your politics. I don't know what being your consort actually means beyond the obvious. But I know that yesterday I was supposed to die, and instead I'm here, and you're the reason for that. So I'm going to figure out how to be useful to you, because that's what I do. I find a mission, and I complete it. And if your mission is simply to be mine, then I'll be the best yours you've ever had. The smile that crossed her face was predatory and delighted. Careful, Ethan Shore. I may hold you to such promises. I'm counting on it. She leaned in, kissed him again deeper this time, claiming. When she pulled back, her eyes had gone dark. The physician advised against strenuous activity. Physicians always say that. And you always ignore them? Generally speaking. Her laugh was low and rich. Come, we have much to do today, and I need you presentable for court. But first, she stood, offering her hand. Breakfast. You need to recover your strength. He took her hand, let her pull him up. Why do I feel like there's a second half to that sentence? Because you are learning to read me, she smiled. And yes, you need your strength because tonight I will test just how resilient humans truly are. The promise in her voice made his pulse quicken. The brand on his chest warmed in response, and he wondered not for the first time what exactly he'd gotten himself into. But as Zapia led him through corridors that gleamed like captured starlight, her hand warm in his, Ethan found he didn't particularly care about the answer. He was alive, he had purpose, and for a man who'd faced death with nothing but rage and a mace, that was more than enough. Night fell on Azure Prime like a curtain of velvet studded with distant suns. Ethan stood at the window of Zapia's private chambers, the Crimson Chambers, as the servants whispered, watching the city lights bloom across the capital. The view stretched for miles, spires of crystal and metal, transport lanes that glowed like rivers of light, plazas where beings from 100 worlds mingled and traded. Beautiful, alien. Nothing like Earth. He missed Earth with a sudden, sharp intensity that surprised him. "You are thinking of your home." He hadn't heard Zapia enter, but he wasn't surprised. She moved like water when she wanted to. He glanced at her reflection in the window. She'd changed again, into something that could only be described as strategically minimal. Deep blue fabric that matched her skin, draped in ways that suggested rather than revealed. Her hair was loose, cascading over her shoulders. The golden crown was absent. She looked less like a queen and more like a woman with intentions. "Yeah," he admitted. "Home. Tell me about it." She crossed to stand beside him, close enough that her warmth radiated against his arm. "Earth's a mess. Too hot in some places, too cold in others. We've got weather that can kill you, animals that want to eat you, plants that can poison you." He smiled slightly. "We love it anyway. Because it made you strong. Because it's ours." He turned to face her properly. The colony at Kepler 442 was humanity's first real attempt at expansion. We were trying to build something better, cleaner, more organized than Earth ever managed. And my empire annexed it. Your empire decided we didn't have the right to colonize a world in what you considered your territory. 60,000 people, Zapia, families, children. You scattered them across a dozen prison worlds, used them for labor, and selected the dangerous ones for execution. He kept his voice level, but she heard the edge in it. "I was dangerous because I led the security force that tried to protect them." She absorbed that without flinching. "I did not order the annexation. That was my predecessor's decision, 2 years before I took the throne." "But you didn't reverse it." "No." She met his eyes directly. "Because by the time I learned the full scope of it, dispersing your people back to their origin point would have been more cruel than allowing them to adapt to their new circumstances. They had begun building lives, painful as that process was, tearing them away again." She shook her head. "I thought I was choosing the lesser harm." "Were you?" "I do not know. Perhaps you can tell me, after you have seen more of my empire." She moved closer, one hand coming up to rest against his chest over his heart. "I did not claim you to ease my conscience about human annexation. I know, you claimed me because I killed things and it got you hot." She laughed, genuine, surprised. "You reduce complex political and psychological motivations to their crudest elements. It's efficient." "It is." Her hand slid up to his shoulder, fingers tracing the healing wounds there. "But you are not wrong. Watching you fight awakened something in me I thought dead. I am a queen, Ethan. I have ruled for 37 years. I have negotiated treaties, crushed rebellions, maintained peace across 200 worlds. I have done everything required of me with precision and intelligence. But I have not felt in longer than I can recall. Every day is performance. Every decision is calculation. Every interaction is filtered through layers of protocol and politics." Her other hand came up, framing his face. "And then I watched a human face certain death with nothing but defiance, and I felt something break inside me, like ice cracking, like waking up." Ethan covered her hands with his. "That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy you just met." "I know, and yet," she stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. "Here we are." "Here we are," he agreed. She kissed him, and this time there was no testing, no hesitation. It was claiming, pure and simple, her mouth on his, her body pressed against him, her hands in his hair. He responded in kind, one hand at her waist, the other sliding up her back, pulling her closer. She tasted like the minerals from the bath and something darker, richer. When they broke apart, both breathing harder, her eyes had gone completely black, pupils swallowing the blue entirely. "Your species," she said, slightly breathless. "Do you have compatibility concerns?" "About sex?" He processed the question. "I mean, I assume the plumbing's different, but..." Functional compatibility has been confirmed by my medical staff. A flush had crept across her cheekbones, darkening her skin to near purple. I mean psychological compatibility, bonding, attachment. You're asking if I'm going to fall in love with you. Crudely put, but yes. He considered the question seriously. I don't know, maybe. Does it matter? To you? I don't do things halfway, Zapia. If we do this, he gestured between them. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to care about you. I'm probably going to get attached. I'm definitely going to be possessive. That's how I'm built. She studied him for a long moment. You understand I cannot offer you exclusivity. I am a queen. Political alliances may require... Stop, he cut her off gently. I understand your position. I understand the requirements. What I'm saying is, when you're with me, you're with me. What you do for politics is politics. But this, he touched her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. This isn't politics, this is personal. And I handle my personal relationships differently. Possessive, she repeated, something dark and pleased in her voice. Did I stutter? She smiled, sharp and delighted. No, you did not. She took his hand, pulled him toward the bed, a massive thing of dark fabric and too many pillows. I should warn you. My species can be intense. We experience sensation differently, more acutely. I'll keep that in mind. And our first coupling will complete the bond of the claiming mark. You will be tied to me in ways you cannot yet understand. Zapia. He stopped her, made her look at him. I'm already tied to you. You pulled me out of an arena where I was supposed to die. You gave me purpose when I had none. You kissed me like I matter. He smiled slightly. The mystical bond is just paperwork at this point. Her expression softened into something almost vulnerable. You are. Unexpected, Ethan Shore. I get that a lot. She pulled him down onto the bed, and for a while there was no more talking. Morning came with sunlight that was slightly the wrong color, Azure Prime's star burning just a bit bluer than Sol, and the sound of armed beings moving through the outer chambers. Ethan woke immediately, combat instincts screaming. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up, scanning for threats, assessing positions. Zapia caught his wrist. Peace, it is only the guard rotation. He forced himself to relax, though his heart was still hammering. She was sprawled across the bed, gloriously unconcerned with her nakedness, watching him with amused interest. The luminescence of her skin had brightened overnight, leaving faint patterns across the sheets where they'd aspirated. He shut down that line of thought before it could distract him further. Guard rotation, he repeated. Right, sorry. Do not apologize for survival instincts, she stretched cat-like. They are part of what makes you appealing. A knock at the door, sharp, military. Zapia made an annoyed sound but called out permission to enter. A section of the wall eye-rised open, and Corvin stepped through. The rhino-featured guard looked even less happy than he had at the arena. Your Majesty. He kept his eyes carefully above Zapia's eye level, which meant he was staring at the ceiling. The morning security briefing. Can wait. Zapia sat up, pulling a sheet around herself with casual grace. What is this really about, Corvan? The guard's jaw worked. The elite guard requests a demonstration of your consort's capabilities. A demonstration. Zapia's voice went flat. How specific? And what form would this demonstration take? Sparring, supervised, non-lethal. Corvan finally looked at Ethan, and the challenge in his eyes was unmistakable. The guard wishes to understand how a human defeated 3 stalkers. They wished to see if it was skill or luck. Ethan saw the trap immediately. If he refused, he looked weak. If he lost, he looked like a fraud. If he won well, that had its own complications. Zapia was watching him, one eyebrow raised. The message was clear. Your choice. When and where? Ethan asked. Corvin's eyes narrowed. The training hall. 1 hour. Bring your courage, human. When he'd gone, Zapia stood, letting the sheet fall. You do not have to do this. Yeah, I do. Ethan found his clothes clean ones. Someone had left them while they slept and started dressing. If I don't establish myself now, I'll be fighting for credibility forever. Better to handle it early. They will not fight fairly. I'm counting on it. He pulled on the shirt, noting it was cut to accommodate his build. Someone in the palace staff was efficient. Humans didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by fighting fair. She smiled. You are going to enjoy this. Little bit, yeah. The training hall was a cathedral of controlled violence. The space was circular, maybe 100 feet across, with a floor of some material that absorbed impacts without being soft. Weapons lined the walls, bladed, blunt, energy-based, things Ethan didn't recognize. Observation platforms ringed the upper levels, and they were packed with beings who'd clearly come to watch the human get humiliated. Corvan waited at the center with 4 other guards, all of them in light armor, all of them significantly larger than Ethan. Different species, a few he recognized from the arena, others new. They moved with the casual confidence of career warriors. Zapia took a seat at the highest observation platform, her presence commanding immediate attention. She dressed in formal armor, ceremonial but functional, all sharp edges and calculated beauty. The crown was back. She looked every inch the queen. Ethan stepped into the circle. "Rules," Corvan announced, his voice carrying. "Sparring only. First to yield or first to be incapacitated loses. No killing blows." A pause. "Though accidents can happen in training." "Understood," Ethan said evenly. "Choose your weapon." Ethan walked to the wall, scanned the options. Swords, staves, those mace things he'd used in the arena. He selected something simple. A training staff, maybe 6 feet long, weighted at both ends. It felt good in his hands, balanced, solid. He turned back to find all 5 guards advancing on him. "Just to be clear," Ethan called out, "it's 1-on-1, right?" Corvan smiled. "Did I say that?" The gallery laughed. Zapia didn't, but Ethan saw her lean forward slightly, interested. Fine, quintet it was. They came at him in formation, trained, coordinated. The first guard, a tall being with 4 arms, attacked high and low simultaneously. Ethan sidestepped, used the staff to redirect the high strike into the low one, creating a tangle. A second guard came from his left. He spun, staff extended, catching them across the shins. They stumbled. But the other 3 were already adjusting, spreading out, forcing him to divide his attention. This was the test, not whether he could fight, but whether he could think while fighting. Ethan stopped trying to win and started trying to learn. He watched their patterns, their tells. The 4-armed one telegraphed with shoulder dips. The one with the heavy ridge armor favored their right side. The smallest, fastest had a habit of overextending on lunges. He let them hit him, not solidly, just enough to confirm his hypotheses. A staff strike to his shoulder? Yeah, that hurt, but manageable. A sweep at his legs, he jumped it, but noted the timing. They were good. But they were trained for other trained opponents. Ethan had been trained by Earth. He changed tactics. The 4-armed guard came at him again. This time, Ethan didn't redirect. He ducked under the strike and came up inside their guard, using his shoulder to drive into their center mass. They had reach, but he had density. They went backward, and he used their own momentum to throw them into the ridge-armored guard. 2 down, briefly. The smallest guard lunged. Ethan let them come, then pivoted at the last second, extending his staff. They ran into it at full speed, clotheslining themselves. The impact would hurt for days, but they'd live. 3 down. The remaining 2 Corvan and a guard with what looked like extra joints in their legs split up, flanking him, smarter. Ethan dropped the staff. The gallery made surprised sounds. Corvan hesitated, confused. Then Ethan moved. He went for Corvan first, not because he was the biggest threat, but because he was the leader. Ethan dropped low, sweeping Corvan's leg. The big guard went down hard, and Ethan used the momentum to roll over him, coming up behind the extra-jointed guard. He grabbed them in a hold. Earth's military had taught him gentle enough not to injure, but positioned to control the breathing, the balance. The guard struggled, then went limp, yielding. Ethan released them carefully and turned to find the other 4 guards back on their feet, circling him again, but now they looked wary, respectful. Corvan stood slowly, rubbing his shoulder. "How did you—" "Kinetics," Ethan said. "You're stronger than me, faster than me, better equipped. But you fight like people who've never had to conserve energy, who've never had to turn an opponent's size against them." He picked up his staff. "Humans are small compared to a lot of Earth's predators. We learn to be creative." One of the other guards, the 4-armed one, made a gesture Ethan didn't recognize. "Again, but this time we fight as if you are threat, not curiosity." "That's a terrible idea," Ethan warned. "For us or for you?" "Honestly, not sure yet." They came at him differently this time, cautious, respectful of his space, working as a unit, better. Ethan had to work for every advantage, using the staff to create space, using mobility to avoid being cornered. He took hits more than he liked but gave them back with interest. The fight lasted maybe 3 minutes before Corvan called a halt. All 6 of them were breathing hard, sweating, or the equivalent. Ethan had a split lip and what would be spectacular bruises, but he was standing. The 5 guards formed a line, then bowed not deep but distinct. "We acknowledge your skill," Corvan said formally. "You have earned your place at the Queen's side through merit, not fortune." "Appreciated." Ethan returned the bow, Earth style. "You're all damn good fighters. Different styles, but damn good." Something shifted in Corvan's expression, not quite a smile, but close. "Perhaps you can teach us your kinetics. Perhaps you can teach me how to fight with 4 arms." That got an actual laugh. Ethan glanced up at the observation platform. Zapia was watching with an expression he was learning to recognize: hunger, pride, possession. She stood, and the gallery immediately silenced. "My consort has proven himself," she announced. "Let any who doubted his worthiness remember this day, and let all understand he is mine and I am satisfied with my choice." The way she said satisfied made Ethan's pulse quicken despite the exhaustion. As the crowd dispersed, Corvan approached him quietly. "The court will test you in other ways, political ways. Be wary." "Why the warning?" "I thought you didn't like me." "I did not. I do not dislike you now, which is progress." Corvan glanced at the departing guards. "You fought honorably. You could have humiliated us. Instead, you showed respect. That matters. Where I come from, respect goes both ways. A strange concept for this court. But perhaps," Corvan paused, "perhaps a useful one." He left, and Ethan was alone in the training hall, aching and tired and oddly content. He'd survived the physical test. Now came the hard part, surviving the politics. The Grand Hall of Azure Prime was designed to intimidate. Ethan stood beside Zapia's throne, trying not to gawk like a tourist, while 1,000-foot holographic displays showed star maps and trade routes. The ceiling was transparent, revealing the planet's rings in all their glory. Beings from 100 worlds filled the space: nobles, ambassadors, merchants, all dressed in clothes that cost more than most colony ships. And every single one of them was staring at him. 3 days since the sparring match. 3 days of crash courses in Imperial protocol, alien body language, and political factions that made Earth's UN look simple. His head hurt from information overload, but he'd learned the basics: who hated whom, who wanted what, and who was likely to try killing him. The current speaker, a being that looked like a mantis crossed with a politician, was definitely in that last category. And while we all admire Her Majesty's eclectic tastes, the mantis was saying, its voice carrying through the hall via translation implants, one must question the wisdom of elevating a primitive to such heights. No offense intended to the human, of course. "Offense taken anyway," Ethan said pleasantly. A ripple of surprise went through the gallery. Zapia, seated on her throne in full regalia, didn't move, but he felt her approval. The mantis turned its compound eyes on him fully. "I am Ambassador Kellis of the Hegemony. I speak with authority on matters of civilizational development. Humans are young, unrefined, prone to violence." "Can't argue with that last part," Ethan crossed his arms. "But young and unrefined doesn't mean stupid." "No one said." "You implied it. Primitive is code for beneath consideration. So let's skip the diplomatic language. You think I'm a pet, a curiosity. Something the Queen collected because she was bored." He smiled without warmth. "Am I close?" Kellis's mandibles clicked together annoyance. If Ethan was reading the body language right, "You prove my point with your hostility." "Actually, I'm proving that humans understand subtext just fine. We're good at reading people who think they're smarter than us." Ethan glanced around the hall, making eye contact with various nobles. "It's a survival trait. You develop it when you're surrounded by predators who underestimate you." "Interesting," came a new voice, smooth, cultured, dangerous. A being that looked almost human except for the metallic sheen to their skin stepped forward. "Ambassador Kellis, you seem to have touched a nerve. Perhaps we should probe deeper." Zapia shifted slightly. Ethan caught the movement tension. This new player was important, threatening. "Lord Tavian," Zapia said coolly, "how generous of you to join the discussion." "I live to serve, Your Majesty." Tavian bowed with perfect form, then turned to Ethan. "Tell me, human, do your people have a concept of nobility, bloodlines?" the careful cultivation of excellence across generations? We do, Ethan said carefully. We also have a concept called meritocracy, where you earn your position through achievement, not through who your parents fucked. The hall went dead silent. Then Zapia laughed, genuine, delighted. Oh, I do enjoy your directness. Tavian's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. How crude. But perhaps that is the human way. Crude, brutish, built for labor, not leadership. Funny thing about brutish, Ethan said, moving forward slightly, positioning himself between Tavian and Zapia without being obvious about it. Brutish wins fights. Brutish survives. Brutish builds colonies on worlds that would kill more refined species. He paused. Brutish claimed 3 stalkers, while your refined asses watched from comfortable seats. The stalkers were hungry, Kellis interjected. Any being would fight in such circumstances. Then why didn't your people join me in the arena? Ethan asked. I'm sure the queen would have been thrilled to see nobility fighting for their lives. Very egalitarian. Tavian's smile sharpened. Are you suggesting our blood is no better than criminal blood? I'm suggesting blood is blood. What matters is what you do with the body it's pumping through. Profound philosophy from a savage. Tavian turned to Zapia. Your Majesty, surely you see the danger here. This human could influence you in ways that destabilize. Careful, Lord Tavian. Zapia's voice cut like a laser. You approach the line between concern and insult. I merely wish to protect. Me? The Empire? Or your own interests? She stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. You speak of bloodlines and cultivation, but what you mean is preservation of power. Your power. The old families who have held influence for centuries without earning it anew. Your Majesty. I was not finished. She descended from the throne, her gaze sweeping the hall. My consort speaks a truth many of you find uncomfortable, that strength of character matters more than strength of lineage. That a human from a backwater colony can display more courage than nobles who have never risked anything. She stopped beside Ethan, took his hand. I chose him because he represents something this empire has lost the will to fight, to survive, to live rather than simply exist in comfort. Tavian bowed again, but his jaw was tight. Of course, Your Majesty, I meant no offense. I merely sought to test his mettle, to see if he could withstand scrutiny. And what did you learn? Ethan asked quietly. That you are clever with words, Tavian met his eyes. But words are cheap in court. Actions reveal truth. We shall see what actions follow your pretty speeches. Looking forward to it. Tavian left, Kellis following like a shadow. Others in the gallery began to disperse, conversations breaking out in hushed tones. Ethan felt the weight of hundreds of stares, the calculations being made. Zapia squeezed his hand. You handled that well. Did I? I might have just made enemies of half your court. You made enemies of those who were already my enemies. The rest are now intrigued. She guided him toward a side exit, her guards falling in around them. Tavian will not forget this. He is not accustomed to being challenged. What's his deal? Old money, older bloodlines. He controls much of the Empire's financial sector. He also believes he should have married me when I took the throne. Her smile was sharp. I declined. He has never quite forgiven that. So this was personal. Everything in court is personal. The trick is making it look political. She pulled him into a private corridor, dismissed the guards with a gesture. Once they were alone, her shoulders relaxed. You were magnificent. The way you framed brutality as virtue, very clever. I wasn't framing anything. I meant it. I know. That is what made it powerful. She kissed him, quick and fierce. But you must understand, Tavian will retaliate. He cannot allow this insult to stand. Let him try. Ethan. Zapia, I appreciate the concern. But I didn't survive 3 wars by running from fights. If Tavian wants to come at me, he can. I'll handle it. She studied his face, then nodded slowly. Very well, but I will have Corvin increase your security detail. I don't need... You do. Her voice brooked no argument. Not because you cannot protect yourself, but because some attacks will come at you through others, through people you care about. Humans have families on the prison worlds, yes? Cold settled in his gut. Yeah. Then accept the guards. Not for you. For them. He wanted to argue. But she was right. This wasn't just about him anymore. Fine, he conceded, but I pick who's on the detail. Agreed, she smiled. You are learning to play the game. I hate the game. I know, but you are good at it anyway. Very human of you." They continued through the corridors, and Ethan tried to process what had just happened. He'd made his first real political move. He'd drawn lines, made statements, positioned himself as something other than a pet or a curiosity. He'd also painted a target on his back. But as Zapia's fingers intertwined with his, as he felt the warmth of the brand on his chest responding to her proximity, Ethan found he didn't regret it. The court wanted to test him? Fine, let them test. Humans were very good at tests, especially the ones they weren't supposed to pass. The observation deck was Ethan's favorite place in the palace. It jutted from the highest spire, like a glass knife, offering 360-degree views of the capital and the stars beyond. At midnight, local midnight, Azure Prime's rotational period was slightly longer than Earth's. The city lights dimmed, and the universe revealed itself in all its terrible beauty. Ethan stood at the edge, hands pressed against the transparent barrier that was probably some kind of advanced force field, and tried to find soul. He'd done the math. Earth was roughly 200 light-years away in that direction. He pointed at a cluster of stars that meant nothing to him. Somewhere in that mess of light was home. People who had no idea he was alive, family who thought he'd died in the annexation. The thought made his chest tight. "You are thinking of home again." He didn't turn. Zapia moved like water. He'd stopped trying to track her approach. "Yeah." She came to stand beside him, her warmth a pleasant contrast to the cool air the environmental systems pumped through the deck. She'd changed into something simple, a robe of dark fabric, her hair loose. No crown, no regalia, just her. "Tell me about them," she said quietly. "Your family." "Why?" "Because they shaped you. And I wish to understand what shapes a human." Ethan considered refusing. The information was personal, vulnerable. But fuck it. Vulnerability was just another form of honesty. "I have a sister, Maya. She's 8 years younger. Last I heard, she was studying xenobiology on Mars Station." He smiled slightly. "Brilliant, annoying. One of those people who's good at everything and doesn't understand why everyone else finds things difficult." "You love her." "Yeah, the word hurt. She wanted to come to Kepler 442. I told her no, too dangerous for a civilian colony, convinced her to stay in Sol's system." His jaw tightened. "One of the few good calls I made." "You saved her life." "I saved her from this, from watching her brother get executed, from maybe ending up in a prison labor camp herself." He finally looked at Zapia. "So yeah, I guess I did." She absorbed that without comment, then, "And your parents?" "Dead. Mining accident when I was 19, which is how I ended up raising Maya." He turned back to the stars. "I joined the military because it paid well and had survivor benefits. Turned out I was good at it, promoted fast, got noticed by the colony initiative, thought I was making a better life. And instead, you found my empire." "Yeah." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. They stood together, watching the stars wheel overhead, two beings from different worlds trying to understand each other. "I envy you," Zapia said eventually. That surprised him. "Why?" "Because you had someone to protect, someone who depended on you, someone who gave your actions meaning beyond yourself." She touched the transparent barrier, her fingers leaving faint luminescent traces. "I have ruled for 37 years. I have made decisions that affected trillions of lives. I have shaped the destiny of an empire. And yet, I have never had what you had with your sister. That simple, pure purpose. You're a queen. Your purpose is pretty clear. My purpose is obligation, duty, responsibility." She looked at him. "Those are not the same as caring for someone who needs you, who trusts you, who loves you without political calculation." Ethan saw it then, the loneliness in her eyes, carefully hidden but present. She was a queen, surrounded by advisors, guards, courtiers, and she was profoundly alone. "You could have that," he said, "if you wanted." "Could I?" Her smile was sad. "Everyone who approaches me wants something. Power, influence, access. Even those who claim affection are calculating the angles. How to use the queen's favor. How to advance their position. Not everyone." "No?" She tilted her head. "What do you want from me, Ethan Shore?" "Honestly, right now I just want you to stop looking sad. It doesn't suit you." She blinked, surprised, then laughed softly. Simple, direct, very human. "It's what I've got." She moved closer until they were touching, her head coming to rest against his shoulder. The gesture was so unexpectedly vulnerable that Ethan froze for a moment before wrapping his arm around her waist. They stood like that, watching the stars, and Ethan felt something shift between them. Something deeper than the physical claim, deeper than the political alliance. Recognition, maybe. Two people who understood loneliness from different angles. "I am a prisoner," Zapia said quietly. "Of my crown, of my responsibilities, of expectations that were set before I was born. Every decision I make must consider billions of people. Every word I speak is analyzed for meaning. Every relationship is transactional." She tilted her head to look up at him. "Except this one. With you, I can simply be. Do you understand how rare that is?" "Yeah." He tightened his arm around her. "I do. When I saw you in the arena, fighting with such fierce determination, I saw something I lost long ago. Freedom. The freedom to simply act without calculation. To fight because the fight mattered, not because it served a greater strategy." She turned, facing him fully. "I wanted that. I wanted you. Not for politics, not for advantage. But because for the first time in decades, I felt desire instead of duty. That's a hell of a thing to put on a guy." "I know. Is it too much?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "Probably. But then again, I faced down 3 stalkers because I was too stubborn to die. Too much seems to be my operating parameter." She smiled genuinely, warmly. "We are both trapped, are we not? You by circumstance, me by obligation. Perhaps that is why this works. Or maybe it works because you're brilliant and terrifying and I'm apparently attracted to women who could destroy me. I would never destroy you." "I know." He kissed her forehead. "That's why it works." They stayed there for another hour, trading stories, her childhood in the palace, his growing up on Earth's overcrowded streets, her lessons in statecraft, his lessons in survival. They found unexpected common ground. Both of them shaped by environments that demanded constant vigilance. Both of them carrying responsibilities that didn't allow for weakness. Eventually, Zapia led him back to her chambers, and they made love with a tenderness that surprised them both. No claiming, no desperation, just 2 lonely people finding warmth in each other. Afterward, as Zapia slept curled against his chest, Ethan stared at the ceiling and realized something that should have terrified him. He was falling for her. Not just physical attraction, not just gratitude for survival, but genuine, deep, complicated feelings for an alien queen who ruled an empire that had destroyed his home. It was messy. It was dangerous. It was probably going to end badly. But for the first time since the annexation, Ethan Shore felt like he had a reason to fight beyond simple survival. He had someone to protect again. And God help anyone who tried to take that away. The gala was a mistake from the start. Ethan knew it, standing in formal clothes that felt like a costume, watching nobles circulate through a ballroom that could have fit his entire colony ship. Zapia had insisted they attend something about showing strength, maintaining visibility, political optics he didn't fully understand. But his instincts, honed by too many ambushes and close calls, were screaming. "You look uncomfortable," Zapia murmured beside him. She looked devastating in formal wear, a gown that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, flowing and changing with her movements. The crown sat perfectly on her head, and every eye in the room tracked her. "I don't like crowds where everyone wants something from you. That describes every crowd I have ever been in." She touched his arm. "But I value your discomfort. Your instincts have been correct before." Corvin appeared at her other side, his bulk somehow formal in ceremonial armor. "Your Majesty, Lord Tavian requests an audience." Of course he did. Ethan hadn't seen the noble since the confrontation in the Grand Hall 2 weeks ago. Radio silence usually meant someone was planning something. "Very well," Zapia said, "but Ethan stays with me." "I expected nothing less, Your Majesty." They moved through the crowd, which parted like a sea. Tavian waited near the center of the ballroom, surrounded by his own coterie of supporters. His metallic skin gleamed under the lights, his smile perfectly calibrated. "Your Majesty," he bowed, "you honor me with your presence." "Lord Tavian, I received your invitation and thought it prudent to attend." Zapia's smile was equally calculated. One should always face potential threats directly. "Threats?" Tavian's eyes widened in mock surprise. "I seek only reconciliation. My words in the Grand Hall were poorly chosen. I hope tonight might serve as olive branch, as the humans say." Ethan's instincts screamed louder. "Appreciated," Zapia said neutrally. They engaged in the ritual dance of court conversation, meaningless words layered with subtext, every gesture measured. Ethan watched Tavian's supporters, noting positions, movements. 3 of them were wearing odd jewelry matching pieces that hummed just at the edge of hearing. Tech, active tech. Ethan shifted closer to Zapia, his shoulder brushing hers. She noticed, glanced at him. He made a small gesture, danger that they'd practiced. Her expression didn't change, but her posture shifted infinitesimally. Ready. And of course, we must discuss the expansion proposals, Tavian was saying. The resources required for new colony efforts are substantial, and some of us feel. The lights went out. Ethan moved on pure instinct, pulling Zapia behind him, his other hand going to where a weapon should be, except he wasn't armed, because security protocols. Idiot. The darkness was absolute, the bioluminescent decorations having failed simultaneously. Backup lights should have engaged. They didn't. He heard movement soft, precise, multiple sources. Zapia, down! He pushed her toward the floor as something whispered through the space where her head had been. No sound of approach, no visual. Just the displacement of air, the minute pressure change. Phase-shifting tech. The attackers were invisible, moving between dimensions or using refraction fields. Whatever. Point was, he couldn't see them. But he could hear them. Ethan closed his eyes, useless in this darkness anyway, and listened. The ballroom had gone silent, except for confused murmurs and the shuffle of beings trying to orient. But under that, he heard it. The slight whistle of something moving fast, the tiny displacement of air molecules, the vibration through the floor as someone stepped. There. Left side, 3 feet away. He dove forward, low, arms extended, connected with something solid legs. He tackled the invisible attacker, felt them topple. A blade materialized as they fell, visible for a split second before the tech re-engaged. Ethan grabbed the wrist, twisted, using the leverage points he'd learned in too many bar fights. The blade clattered away. "Corvin!" Ethan shouted. "Lights! Now!" Working on, Corvin's voice cut off with a grunt. Fighting. The guard was fighting something. Another displacement of air, this one directly above. Ethan rolled, pulling the invisible attacker with him, using them as a shield. He felt impact, another invisible blade hitting the person he was holding. They screamed, their phase shift tech failing, revealing a humanoid figure in dark armor. Ethan released them, scrambled back toward where he'd left Zapia. She wasn't there. His heart stopped. Then he heard her, not a scream, but a hiss of pain, somewhere to his right. He moved toward the sound, tracking by audio alone, his hands extended, feeling through the darkness. He found her by colliding with someone standing over her. The person was solid, not phase-shifted, which meant they'd drop their protection to strike. Mistake. Ethan grabbed them, got one arm around their throat, the other controlling their knife arm. They struggled strong, trained, but Ethan had Earth-standard muscle density and desperation. He squeezed. The person went limp. Ethan took their knife finally, a weapon, and dropped to his knees beside Zapia. "Talk to me." Struck my shoulder. Blade cut through. Her breathing was labored. Poison, possibly. "Stay down. I've got you." He positioned himself over her, the knife ready, listening to the chaos around them. The ballroom was erupting, guards shouting, nobles screaming, the sounds of fighting. How many attackers? Where was Corvan? Where the fuck were the lights? Another displacement of air. Ethan struck out blind, felt the knife connect. A gasp, good. Then, pain, sharp, sudden, in his left side. He'd missed one. He twisted, trying to dislodge the blade, but it was already withdrawing. Blood, hot and immediate. Through the combat suit they'd given him, which meant a very good blade. He stayed standing. Staying standing was important. If he went down, Zapia was exposed. "Corvan!" he shouted again. "Lights, or I start killing everyone I touch." Ethan, Zapia's voice, weak. "Stay quiet. Conserve energy." His side was warm, wet, blood loss. How much? Hard to tell in the dark. The knife felt slippery in his grip. His vision was non-existent, so that was useless information. Focus. Listen. There. Another step. Close. He struck out. Missed. Second strike. Connected with something. Flesh. He drove the knife in, felt resistance, pushed harder. Someone made a choking sound. The lights came on. Ethan blinked against the sudden brightness, taking in the scene. 6 bodies on the floor in dark armor. Corvin grappling with a 7th. The nobles pressed against the walls, terrified. and Zapia on the ground behind him, her shoulder bleeding, her skin pale. He dropped to his knees beside her, applying pressure to her wound. "Medical, now!" The medical staff, who'd apparently been sheltering behind a pillar, scrambled forward. They took over, working with the efficiency of combat medics. Ethan let them, turning to assess the room. Tavian was gone. So were his supporters with the odd jewelry. "Corvin," Ethan called. "Tavian?" The guard, now restraining the last attacker, looked around. His expression darkened. Gone. Likely fled when the attack began. Or orchestrated it. Likely. Ethan looked down at himself. The suit was torn, blood soaking through. His side hurt a lot, actually, now that the adrenaline was wearing off. He prodded the wound carefully. Deep, but not organ deep. He'd live. "Ethan!" Zapia's voice stronger now. The medics had stabilized her, were working on neutralizing whatever poison had been on the blade. "You are injured." "Flesh wound. You?" "Surviving thanks to you." Her eyes held his. "You heard them. In the darkness. How?" "Human thing. We're good at tracking predators." Corvin approached, his armor scored and dented. "You killed 3 of them, disabled 2 others, while blind, and protecting the queen." He stared at Ethan with something approaching awe. "How?" "Practice." Ethan winced as a medic started working on his side. "And spite. Lots of spite." Zapia reached out, caught his hand. "You took a blade meant for me." "Yeah." "Why?" He looked at her, really looked at her. At the vulnerability in her eyes, the question behind the question, "Because you matter. To me. To the Empire. To..." He stopped, recalibrated. "Because you're mine to protect, remember? That goes both ways." Her grip tightened. "Ethan Shore, you are either the bravest being I have ever met or the most foolish. Can't it be both?" She laughed, then winced. "Do not make me laugh. It hurts." "Then stop asking questions with obvious answers." The medics worked, the guards secured the room, and slowly the crisis transformed into aftermath. Investigations would be launched, accusations would fly. Tavian would deny everything, and they'd probably never prove his involvement. But as Ethan sat there, bleeding and tired and alive, watching Zapia receive treatment with that same fierce determination he'd seen in the arena, he realized something. He'd passed another test, not the one Tavian had set for him, but the one he'd set for himself. He'd proven he could protect what mattered. And in doing so, he'd become something more than a survivor. He'd become exactly what Zapia had claimed he was from the start. Hers. And she was his. The Empire could rage about it all it wanted. The court could scheme, the assassins could come in the night. Humans were very good at saying "fuck you" to impossible odds. It was, after all, how they'd survived Earth. Recovery took 3 days. The wound in Ethan's side healed with a speed that still amazed the medical staff, apparently. Human healing factors were something the Empire's xenobiologists would be studying for years. Zapia recovered faster, her species' superior constitution overcoming the poison that would have killed most beings. They spent those days together in the Crimson Chambers, the palace on lockdown while Corvin's investigation proceeded. The assassins had been mercenaries, phase shift specialists from a guild that normally didn't take contracts on royalty. Someone had paid a fortune to make an exception. Tavian had vanished, not fled, vanished, dropped off every sensor, every network, gone like smoke, which proved guilt more than any confession, but made prosecution impossible. The court was in chaos. Factions that had been dormant for years suddenly activated. 3 nobles attempted coups. Corvin put them down with extreme prejudice. The message was clear. Attempt the queen's life, and the consequences would be severe. On the 4th day, Zapia summoned Ethan to the throne room. He arrived to find it empty, except for her and Corvin. The vast space felt different without the crowd's intimate, almost. Zapia sat on her throne, fully dressed in regalia, the crown gleaming under the starlight that streamed through the transparent ceiling. She looked every inch the Empress who ruled 200 worlds. "Ethan Shore," she said formally, "approach." He walked forward, noting Corvin's slight nod of approval. Whatever this was, the guard had been briefed. Ethan stopped at the base of the throne, looked up at her. "Your Majesty. 3 weeks ago, I claimed you. I brought you into my court, into my bed, into my life. I did so because I saw in you something my empire had lost: vitality, courage, the refusal to accept defeat." She stood, descended the steps. I did not expect what followed. Neither did I. You have faced my court's scorn with dignity. You have earned my guard's respect through skill. You have protected my life at risk to your own. And she stopped before him, taking his hands. You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope, purpose beyond duty, a reason to feel rather than simply rule. Zapia. Let me finish. Her smile was soft. I claimed you as consort, a political designation, a title, but you have become something more. You have become essential. To me? To this empire, whether it knows it yet or not. She released one of his hands, gestured to Corvin. The guard stepped forward, carrying a box of dark metal that pulsed with contained energy. The empire needs change, Zapia continued. It has grown stagnant, complacent. It needs what you represent, the human capacity for adaptation, for fighting impossible odds, for finding joy in simply surviving another day. She took the box from Corvin, opened it. Inside lay a ring, simple in design but glowing with that same golden light as her crown. This is the ring of the Eternal Throne. It has been given to exactly 3 beings in the Empire's history, those who shaped its destiny, who stood beside empresses and emperors not as servants but as equals. She took the ring, held it up. I offer it to you now, not as consort, not as companion, but as partner in ruling this empire, as advisor, protector, and catalyst for the change we desperately need. Ethan stared at the ring, at her, at Corvin, who was watching with an expression that might have been pride. That's insane, Ethan said. I don't know how to rule an empire. I'm a soldier, a surveyor. I barely understand your politics. I know. That is precisely why I need you. She stepped closer. You see clearly because you are not blinded by tradition. You speak truth because you have not learned court deception. You fight for what you believe because Earth taught you to never surrender. Her eyes held his. I need that clarity, that honesty, that stubborn human refusal to accept the status quo. Zapia, your court will revolt. Let them. Her smile was fierce. I am done compromising with nobles who care only for their power. I am done pretending the empire is fine when it is slowly dying. You have shown me that change is possible, that vitality can be reclaimed. She held the ring out. Will you help me reshape this empire? Will you stand beside me, not behind me, as we bring the chaos and creativity that made humanity survive Earth to the stars? Ethan looked at the ring, thought about Maya, somewhere in Sol system, probably still believing he was dead. Thought about the 60,000 humans scattered across prison worlds, living in forced labor. Thought about the colony they'd tried to build, the lives lost in the annexation. Thought about Zapia, standing before him with vulnerability and hope in her eyes, offering him power beyond anything he'd imagined. He could refuse. He could ask to return to Earth, to find Maya, to leave this alien court and its Byzantine politics. But then, who would protect Zapia? Who would push for the changes she wanted? Who would fight for the humans still trapped in the Empire's systems? And more honestly, who would he become without her? He'd found purpose here. Found someone who saw him as more than a weapon or a survivor. Found a reason to fight that went beyond simple stubbornness. He reached out, took the ring. The moment it touched his skin, it warmed, then conformed to his finger, settling into place with a sensation like coming home. Golden light flared, matching the brand on his chest, and he felt something shift in him, in the throne room, in the very air. Connection, bond, partnership. Zapia's smile was radiant. Thank you. I'm going to screw this up, Ethan warned. Probably spectacularly. I am counting on it. Controlled chaos, remember? Very human. Corvin approached, went to one knee. I pledge my service to the Eternal Throne, to Her Majesty and her chosen partner. May your reign reshape the stars. Ethan helped the guard stand. I'm going to need your help. You have it. And more, the guards are yours to command. We have seen what you can do, we will follow. Over the following weeks, the changes began. Ethan started with the humans. Using his new authority, he negotiated their release from prison worlds, their integration into society as full citizens. Some chose to return to Sol system. Ethan ensured they had safe passage and compensation. Others chose to stay, finding opportunities in an empire that was learning to value human tenacity. He found Maya. She came to Azure Prime 6 months later, tearful and angry and overjoyed, punching him in the shoulder for making her think he was dead before hugging him so hard his ribs ached. She met Zapia, was appropriately awed, then immediately started asking about the Empire's xenobiological research programs with an enthusiasm that made the Queen laugh. The court adapted. Slowly. Some nobles left, unable to accept the new order. Others stayed, intrigued by the changes, by the energy that Ethan and Zapia brought to governance. New blood joined from outer worlds, from species that had been marginalized, from humans who brought Earth's peculiar brand of creative problem-solving. Tavian was never found. His faction dissolved, their assets seized, their influence broken. Sometimes Ethan wondered if the noble was alive somewhere, planning revenge. But mostly, he was too busy to care. Busy helping Zapia reform trade regulations, busy training the guards in human combat techniques, busy learning diplomacy from beings who'd been playing political games for centuries. Busy falling deeper in love with an alien queen who challenged him, respected him, and occasionally pinned him to the bed with a smile that promised interesting things. 1 year after the arena, Ethan stood with Zapia on the observation deck, watching the stars wheel overhead. Maya was somewhere below, probably terrorizing the medical staff with questions. Corvin was running drills with mixed human-alien guard units. The Empire was changing, evolving, becoming something new. Regrets? Zapia asked, her hand finding his. Ethan thought about it honestly. Some. I miss Earth. I miss the life I thought I'd have. But this is better. Harder, more complicated, occasionally terrifying, but better. He pulled her close. I found purpose. I found you. I found a way to make a difference that matters. She rested her head against his shoulder. I watched you face death, and I wanted to possess you. I did not expect to love you. Love? He looked down at her. That's the first time you've used that word. Is it inaccurate? No, it's perfect. He kissed her forehead. I love you too, even if you are a terrifying alien empress who could destroy me with a thought. I would never destroy you. You are far too useful, and entertaining, and mine. Yours, he agreed, and you're mine. They stood together, two beings from different worlds who had found each other through violence and chance, who had built something impossible and beautiful and strange. Around them, an empire stretched across the stars, slowly transforming into something that valued courage over lineage, merit over tradition, humanity over protocol. In the arena, Ethan Shore had fought 3 beasts and survived. On the throne, beside an empress who had learned to live again, he would fight for something far more important. A future worth surviving for. And he would win. Because humans, stubborn and creative, and absolutely refusing to quit, always found a way. It was, after all, what they did best.
And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate it. This channel is all about original human-focused science fiction, and every story is presented as a part of a larger collection. If you'd like to continue, there's another story from this channel on screen now that fits right alongside this one. Feel free to jump into that next, and I'll see you there.